I was once fit and athletic, but after marriage I gradually gained weight. My wife Jessica started becoming distant, claiming my appearance made me unattractive to her. When she reconnected with her college friend Brad, things changed dramatically. She began spending more time with him for what she called fitness activities. Something felt off, but I trusted her completely. The doubts crept in slowly, but I pushed them away. Before I tell you how my world collapsed when I discovered what was really happening, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely. 7 years ago, my life was completely different. As a software engineer with a promising career ahead of me, I was confident, athletic, and happy. My college days were filled with basketball games, hiking trips with friends, and maintaining an active lifestyle that kept me in great shape. I met Jessica at a tech conference in Seattle, where we both attended a panel on artificial intelligence. She approached me, after noticing my insightful question to the panelists, and we instantly connected over our shared interests in technology and outdoor activities. Jessica was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. Intelligent, ambitious, and with a smile that could light up an entire room. Our first date involved a challenging hike, followed by dinner at a small Italian restaurant. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have met someone who enjoyed physical activities as much as I did. We dated for 18 months before I proposed on a mountain summit during sunrise, and she said yes without hesitation. The first 3 years of our marriage were blissful. We bought a beautiful house in the suburbs, traveled together during vacations, and supported each other through career advancements. Jessica worked as a marketing executive for a fitness company, which aligned perfectly with her passion for staying in shape. We would often go for morning runs together or hit the gym as a couple after work. Life seemed perfect, and I felt truly blessed. Everything began to change when I received a significant promotion at work. The new position came with greater responsibilities, longer hours, and considerably more stress. Gradually, my exercise routine took a backseat to meeting deadlines and managing a team of 12 developers. Late nights at the office became normal, and my diet shifted from home-cooked meals to takeout eaten hastily at my desk. The pounds began to add up, first gradually, then more noticeably. Jessica initially supported me through this transition period. She would prepare healthy meals when I came home late, and encourage me to join her for quick workouts on weekends. But as months passed, and my weight continued to increase, her supportive comments transformed into subtle criticisms. What began as gentle nudges, like "I bought some protein shakes for you to keep," at the office evolved into pointed remarks such as, "Those pants are getting tight. Do you want me to order you some new ones?" While I was gaining weight, Jessica became increasingly obsessed with her own fitness. She upgraded her gym membership to a premium fitness club, invested in expensive workout gear, and began posting daily fitness updates on social media. Our home gradually filled with supplements, workout equipment, and fitness magazines. Jessica would spend hours perfecting her appearance, something she had never been particularly concerned about before. It was during this time that Brad re-entered our lives. Jessica bumped into him at her gym, a coincidence she described as amazing since they had lost touch after college. Brad had been her friend and study partner during their university days, and according to Jessica, they had always maintained a strictly platonic relationship. He was now working as a personal trainer at the very gym Jessica frequented, having transformed his passion for fitness into a career. The first time I met Brad was at a college reunion Jessica insisted we attend. He was exactly what you would expect from a personal trainer, tall, muscular, with a confident smile and charismatic personality. I noticed how his eyes lingered on Jessica a bit too long, how he casually touched her arm when they laughed about old college memories. Still, I dismissed my discomfort as mere insecurity about my own physical appearance standing next to him. Following the reunion, Jessica began mentioning Brad more frequently in conversations. She would casually drop his name into discussions about fitness techniques or diet plans. I began noticing her phone buzzing more often, and she would quickly grab it with a smile, typing responses rapidly before placing it face down. When I asked who she was texting so enthusiastically, she would say it was work or her friends from the gym. Something felt off, but I told myself I was being paranoid. In an attempt to reconnect with Jessica and address my insecurities, I began making small efforts to get back in shape. I started taking brief walks during lunch breaks and cutting back on the office snacks. Jessica seemed pleased with my initiative, but her encouragement felt hollow somehow, as though she was merely going through the motions of being supportive. Despite my efforts, the distance between us continued to grow, leaving me increasingly anxious about the future of our relationship. As weeks passed, Jessica became more vocal about my weight. What had once been subtle comments evolved into direct statements about how my size was limiting our activities together. I still remember the sting of her words when I suggested we go hiking on our anniversary weekend just like we used to do when we first met. She looked at me with barely disguised disappointment and said, "You are too heavy for that trail now, Nolan. It would be too strenuous for you." Her words cut deep, but what hurt even more was her immediate follow-up suggestion that perhaps she could go with Brad instead since he was training for a mountain race and needed the practice. When I expressed my disappointment about not spending our anniversary together, she accused me of being unreasonable and holding her back from her fitness goals. That night, I lay awake beside her, feeling like a stranger had replaced the woman I married. Jessica began spending more time at the gym, with Brad explaining that having an accountability partner was essential for her progress. What started as 3 weekly sessions quickly increased to 5, then expanded to include weekend training, nutrition planning meetings, and fitness workshops. Her time at home decreased dramatically, and when she was home, she was either texting, preparing specialized meals for herself, or too tired to engage in meaningful conversation. One evening, while Jessica was showering, her phone buzzed repeatedly on the kitchen counter. I had never been the type to invade her privacy, but something compelled me to glance at the screen. What I saw made my stomach drop. Multiple notifications from Brad with previews that read, "Can't wait for tomorrow and miss your smile already." When confronted, Jessica casually explained they were discussing an upcoming charity run they were participating in together. She showed me their text thread, which indeed contained messages about the event, but something about her too quick explanation and defensive posture left me uneasy. My childhood friend Alan, who had known me since elementary school, visited us one weekend and noticed the tension between Jessica and me. After she left for what she called an emergency training session with Brad, Alan cautiously mentioned that he had seen Jessica and Brad together at a restaurant across town the previous month when he was there on a business trip. According to Alan, they were not dressed in gym clothes, but were intimate, holding hands across the table and looking very much like a couple. When I confronted Jessica about this, she became furious, accusing me of having Alan spy on her and claiming they had stopped for a quick meal after an intense workout. She turned the entire situation around, making me feel guilty for doubting her. The gaslighting became a regular occurrence. Jessica would tell me she would be home by 7, then arrive at 10, with no explanation. When questioned, she would insist she had told me 10 all along, making me doubt my own memory. She would promise to be available for dinner with friends, then cancel last minute for emergency sessions with Brad, later claiming these plans had been on her calendar for weeks, and I should have known. My self-esteem plummeted as I began questioning my own sanity, wondering if the stress from work was affecting my memory, as Jessica suggested. My weight became her go-to excuse for everything she did not want to do with me. Movies. The seats are too uncomfortable for someone your size. Dinner with my parents, I am embarrassed about how much you eat in front of them. Intimacy, I am just not attracted to you at this weight. Each rejection reinforced my growing insecurity, making me feel unworthy of her attention or affection. I began avoiding social situations to spare myself the humiliation of her public comments about my appearance. In a desperate attempt to save our marriage, I planned a romantic evening at home on a night Jessica had not scheduled with Brad. I arranged for her favorite meal from the upscale restaurant where we had celebrated our engagement, bought flowers, and even prepared a heartfelt letter expressing my commitment to improving myself and our relationship. 2 hours before she was due home, Jessica texted that she would be late because Brad had arranged a special high-intensity training session that was exactly what she needed for her fitness competition preparation. She did not come home until after midnight, smelling of perfume rather than sweat. The final straw came during a rare moment when we were actually having breakfast together. I mentioned that I had started working with a nutritionist to address my weight in a healthy, sustainable way. Instead of encouragement, Jessica looked at me with a mixture of amusement and contempt, saying Brad would never let himself go like you have. He understands that maintaining your body is a form of respect for your partner. Her words confirmed what I had suspected for months. This was no longer about my health or appearance. This was about Brad and whatever was happening between them. After weeks of mounting suspicions and increasingly flimsy excuses, I decided I needed to know the truth once and for all. On a Thursday, when Jessica had told me she would be at the gym with Brad for their usual evening training session, I left work early with a plan. I would surprise her at the gym, perhaps even join them for a workout as a gesture of goodwill and an attempt to be part of her world again. I arrived at the premium fitness center where Jessica claimed to spend so many hours, my heart pounding with anxiety. After checking in as a guest, I searched every section of the gym, The weight area, cardio machines, fitness studios, even the juice bar. Jessica was nowhere to be found. When I casually asked a staff member if they had seen the personal trainer Brad, they informed me that Brad had taken the day off. Standing in the middle of that gym, surrounded by people focused on improving themselves, I felt a cold realization wash over me. I pulled out my phone and activated the location-sharing app Jessica, and I had installed years ago for safety reasons. We had rarely used it, but had never disabled it either. My hands trembled as I waited for the map to load, showing Jessica's location at the Westlake Hotel downtown, nowhere near the gym where she was supposed to be. The 20-minute drive to the hotel was a blur. My mind raced through every possibility, creating excuses for why she might be there. Perhaps a surprise fitness retreat. A work event she had forgotten to mention. Deep down I knew the truth. But some part of me still clung to denial, still wanted to believe in the woman I had married. The hotel receptionist was surprisingly helpful when I explained I was looking for my wife who might be attending an event there. Her helpful response: "The fitness consultant conference, that is on the mezzanine level," nearly gave me hope, until I checked and found no such event taking place. With growing desperation, I mentioned Brad's name, and the receptionist brightened with recognition. "Oh, Mr. Wilson checked into room 324 earlier today. Would you like me to call up?" I declined and headed for the elevators, my world collapsing with each floor I ascended. Standing outside room 324, I could hear muffled laughter and music. I knocked irrationally, hoping for any explanation other than the obvious. The door opened to reveal Brad in a bathrobe, his expression shifting from annoyance to shock upon seeing me. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of Jessica, scrambling to cover herself with a sheet champagne glasses on the nightstand beside scattered clothing on the floor. The devastating reality hit me with physical force. Jessica did not even try to hide it. Instead, she looked at me with a mixture of irritation and pity, as though I was the one who had done something wrong by discovering their affair. When she finally spoke, her words destroyed whatever was left of my heart. "If you had not gotten so fat, this would not have happened. I needed a real man who takes care of himself, not someone who gave up." Brad stood there with a smug half-smile, offering a pathetic, "Sorry, man, these things happen," as though he had accidentally taken my parking spot rather than my wife. I stood frozen, unable to process the casual cruelty of their response to being discovered. No guilt, no shame, just irritation at the interruption of their rendezvous. In that moment, something inside me broke. Years of love, trust, and shared dreams shattered beyond repair. I could not speak, could not rage, could not even cry. I simply turned and walked away, Jessica's voice calling after me with more accusations about how I had driven her to this with my neglect of my physical appearance. The next few hours passed in a daze. I checked into another hotel across town, unable to face returning to our home filled with photographs and memories of what I now realized had been a lie. Sitting on the edge of a strange bed in a generic room, I finally broke down great heaving sobs that came from the depths of my soul. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and the woman I loved had been false. The weight of this betrayal crushed me more thoroughly than any physical burden ever could. That night, alone in a hotel room with my phone turned off to avoid Jessica's inevitable attempts to justify her actions, I hit rock bottom. I contemplated the ruins of my 7-year marriage and wondered how I could have been so blind. The signs had been there all along, but I had chosen to ignore them, making excuses for Jessica's behavior and blaming myself for her distance. The realization that she had used my weight as a convenient excuse for her infidelity rather than an actual reason for it was a painful truth I was only beginning to comprehend. For 3 days following my discovery at the hotel, I remained in a fog of despair, barely eating or sleeping, ignoring calls from work and friends. On the 4th morning, something shifted inside me. As I stared at my reflection in the hotel bathroom mirror, I did not see a man defined by his weight or his wife's betrayal. I saw someone who deserved better, someone who had been manipulated and gaslit for far too long. This moment of clarity became my turning point. Rather than confront Jessica immediately, I decided to be strategic. I checked out of the hotel and returned home when I knew she would be at work. She had left multiple voice messages expressing not remorse but frustration that I was overreacting to what she termed a natural consequence of my letting myself go. Her callousness solidified my resolve to protect myself both emotionally and financially. My first step was consulting with a divorce attorney recommended by a colleague who had recently gone through a similar situation. The attorney, a compassionate yet practical woman named Diana, advised me to gather evidence before making any moves. Since California is a no-fault divorce state, the affair itself would not impact the division of assets, but documenting any financial misconduct related to the affair certainly would. Following Diana's advice, I began quietly investigating our financial accounts. What I discovered was even more shocking than the affair itself. Jessica had been systematically draining our joint savings account for months, withdrawing thousands of dollars in cash that I now suspected had funded lavish gifts for Brad and their hotel rendezvous. She had also applied for a credit card in my name, racking up substantial debt on expensive gym equipment, designer workout clothes, and weekend getaways disguised as fitness retreats. While gathering this evidence, I maintained a facade of someone working through the discovery of an affair. I returned home and engaged in just enough conversation with Jessica to avoid raising suspicions about my actual plans. She alternated between defensive justifications of her actions and half-hearted attempts at reconciliation, always circling back to how my weight had forced her into Brad's arms. I let her believe I was considering working on our marriage, while secretly preparing for my exit. During this time, I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage, particularly as Jessica had gradually isolated me from my support network. My friend Alan proved invaluable, offering his guest room when being at home became unbearable, and providing emotional support without judgment. Through Alan, I also reconnected with our wider friend group, many of whom expressed they had sensed something was wrong in my marriage, but had not known how to approach the subject. Alongside my divorce preparations, I began a genuine fitness journey, not to win Jessica back, but for my own physical and mental health. Unlike her quick-fix approach to fitness, I consulted with a nutritionist and a personal trainer who specialized in sustainable lifestyle changes. The physical activity helped channel my anger and betrayal into something constructive, while the improving numbers on my medical tests gave me tangible evidence that I was taking back control of my life. Over the next 3 months, I meticulously documented every financial transaction related to Jessica's affair. I discovered airline tickets purchased for Brad on our joint credit card, expensive watches and clothing items that were clearly not for me, and even a down payment for a motorcycle that Brad had suddenly acquired. Most damning was a transfer of $20,000 from our home equity line of credit to an account I had never seen before, which my attorney confirmed we could definitively prove was unauthorized. Throughout this period, Jessica remained oblivious to my investigations, continuing her affair with Brad, while maintaining the pretense that we were working on our marriage. She began to notice my physical transformation, as the weight gradually came off, and her attitude subtly shifted. The criticisms about my appearance decreased, replaced by occasional compliments and more frequent attempts at physical affection, which I politely deflected. It became increasingly clear that Jessica was hedging her bets, keeping both Brad and me on the hook, while deciding which option would prove more advantageous. After 4 months of careful preparation, physical transformation, and emotional healing, I was ready for the final phase of my plan. Jessica had noticed my weight loss and improved appearance, suddenly showing renewed interest in our marriage. She began suggesting date nights, initiating intimate moments, and even mentioned taking a vacation together to work on our relationship. What she did not realize was that I had already packed essential items and personal mementos, secured a new apartment, and was merely waiting for the right moment to execute my exit strategy. That moment came when Jessica suggested we have a special dinner at home to discuss our future. She prepared an elaborate meal dressed in an outfit I had once complimented, and even bought my favorite wine. As we sat across from each other at our dining table, she reached for my hand and said, "I think we should start fresh, Nolan. You look amazing now, and I realize I may have been unfair to you. We could be good together again." With a calmness that surprised even me, I met her gaze and replied, "I know everything, Jessica. The unauthorized credit cards, the drained savings account, the home equity line of credit, the gifts for Brad, the hotel rooms, all of it. The truth was never about my weight. It was about your character." The color drained from her face as I reached into my briefcase and produced a folder containing bank statements, credit card bills, hotel receipts, and photographs documenting her financial betrayal. Alongside these, I placed a second folder containing divorce papers already prepared by my attorney. Her shock quickly transformed into anger, then calculation, as she realized the severity of her situation. Jessica attempted various manipulation tactics that had worked on me in the past. First came tears, and apologies, claims that Brad had pressured and manipulated her. When those failed to move me, she switched to anger, threatening to take everything in the divorce and ruin my reputation among our friends. Finally, she attempted seduction, suggesting we could work through this if I would just give her another chance. Each attempt bounced off the emotional armor I had developed during my months of preparation. While Jessica was still processing the reality of her situation, my phone buzzed with a text message from Brad. I had expected this, having sent him an email earlier that day with select financial documents showing how Jessica had been funding their lifestyle with my money. His message was brief and telling sorry about everything. Had no idea she was stealing from you. Not my problem anymore. Good luck. I showed Jessica the message, watching as her final support crumbled. Brad had abandoned her the moment he realized there would be no more financial benefits to their relationship. Her carefully constructed house of cards had completely collapsed. She sank into a chair, finally silent, the magnitude of her actions and their consequences fully hitting her. The divorce proceedings went surprisingly smoothly after that initial confrontation. Faced with irrefutable evidence of financial misconduct, Jessica agreed to a settlement that required her to repay the misappropriated funds and relinquished any claim to our house, which I later sold to make a fresh start. She moved in with a sister in another state, while Brad quickly found another wealthy client to charm at his gym. 6 months after our divorce was finalized, I ran into Jessica's former friend Stephanie at a coffee shop. She hesitated before approaching me, then said, "I always knew you deserved better than how she treated you." Jessica did the same thing in college, using people until something better came along. I wish I had said something sooner. Her words confirmed what I had come to realize: my weight had never been the real issue. It had merely been a convenient excuse for Jessica's selfishness and lack of character. My physical transformation continued not from a place of insecurity, but from genuine self-care. The lifestyle changes I had implemented became habits, and my health improved dramatically. More importantly, my emotional well-being flourished, as I rebuilt my life on a foundation of self-respect and authenticity. I rediscovered old hobbies, traveled to places Jessica had never wanted to visit, and gradually opened myself to the possibility of new relationships based on mutual respect rather than superficial attraction. Through therapy, I came to understand that Jessica's behavior reflected her shortcomings, not mine. The counseling sessions helped me recognize the patterns of emotional abuse and manipulation that had characterized our marriage, teaching me to identify red flags I would never again ignore. I learned that true partners support each other through life's changes, rather than using them as excuses for betrayal. 1 year after discovering Jessica's affair, I met Kelly at a community volunteer event. Unlike Jessica's calculated charm, Kelly's warmth and authenticity were immediately apparent. She listened more than she spoke, asked thoughtful questions, and never made me feel judged for my past or my appearance. Our relationship developed slowly, built on friendship and mutual respect, rather than the intense but shallow passion that had characterized my early days with Jessica. The most valuable lesson from my painful experience was learning to define my own worth rather than seeking validation from others. My value as a person had never been determined by the number on a scale, and anyone who suggested otherwise was revealing their own superficiality, not my inadequacy. This realization freed me from the insecurity that had allowed Jessica to manipulate me for so long. Today, I am healthier, both physically and emotionally, than I have ever been, not because someone else demanded it, but because I chose it for myself. The betrayal that once seemed like the end of my world became instead the beginning of a more authentic life. And while I would never wish such pain on anyone, I am grateful for the wisdom and strength it ultimately brought me. If you have ever experienced betrayal or been made to feel unworthy because of your appearance, I hope my story reminds you that your value is not determined by someone else's superficial judgment. Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and consider subscribing to hear more stories of overcoming life's challenges. Your experiences might help others feeling alone in similar situations. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted opens the door to finding what you truly deserve.